First of all, a humongous thank you for my time while I was away, for Dr. Tracy, for Faye, and for our staff for having August be fabulous. Yes, so huge kudos, great monumental thanks. Oh, and to Reverend Karen as well. She also did a talk, and so just so lovely. I love being able to take August off, and I love going, and I love coming home. And so that's when you know it's been good, is when you're ready to come home. And all I got to do is hear the stories, and no fires. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing, and they just work it out. And it is a beautiful and lovely, lovely thing to feel the health and well-being of our community. And I'm so grateful that you're a part of it. So we are having our conversation about doobie-doo, right? And one of the things that I realized when I first really started getting into the science of mind was how much everything resolves itself into a paradox, which I found annoying as all get out. I want the answer. I want to know which is the right way, the right thing. I want somebody to tell me exactly what it is, and I will follow it. Yeah, not so much, right? And so that's a bit of what we're exploring this month, is this deep paradox of the dance. So today we're talking about the dance of creation. And when I first got into the science of mind and I first got into spirituality, there was a lot of conversation about alignment and about allowing spirit to flow through us. And if we could just open ourselves up, somehow everything would be fabulous. And one of the words that I heard a lot was to learn how to be in balance. Learn how to be in balance with ourselves, learn how to be in balance with life, learn how to just balance that spirituality, and if we could just stay spiritual, then the humanness would somehow get fixed. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out this balance. Oh, and then of course, then we learned to meditate, and I learned to do spiritual practice, and I went and had an amazing meditation teacher. He'd been a monk at the Paramahansa Yogananda ashram, and so for him, meditation practice was 3 hours a day. So I figured 1 hour would be good. And so 1 hour a day of that, and then an hour for a workout, and then, an hour to eat right, and then an hour for friendships, and an hour for self-care, and 8 hours of sleep. And I was like, when do I work? How does that actually work? Right? And so I was constantly struggling with that, And then I had a child, and for all of you who've had children, all bets were off, right? Balance went completely out the window, which was extremely annoying to me because I had at that point perfected balance. I had, in fact, really figured it out. And this is what balance looked like to me, right? And I did a lot of work. I got it, it's good. Everything's okay. My life is in balance. No. Well, how annoying to discover that all I was really trying to do was control everything. Because I thought balance meant standing in the middle of the teeter-totter, kind of, keeping everything in the groove. Well, first of all, I discovered that all I was really trying to do was control everything. And second of all, it was boring as hell. Because everything was flat. That's what I was trying to do, keep it flat. Not too high, not too low, can't have problems. God forbid, that must mean I'm not being spiritual, right? You can't have sorrow, you can't be angry, right? Because all of those things mean you're not doing it right. And I really spent a lot of time seeking balance. And I'll never forget an executive coach who really began to do a lot of work with me around this on various different topics. But I realized that balance actually looks very different. Balance is actually about being in the dance of life. You know, I used to do that as a kid when you would try to make you and your partner on the teeter-totter, like, hang in the balance, right? And then after a while, it's like, okay, that's boring, right? So then you start up and down, throwing each other off. How hard can you hit? What can you do, right? And it's the motion of the teeter-totter that actually makes it so fun. And I began to realize that balance actually is the ability to move with agility and confidence from one side to the other. Sometimes over here, sometimes over here, not trying to keep it in stasis, right? Not trying to keep it static. That's how I misinterpreted perfection. But to really embrace wholeness, the wholeness of our lives, spirit and human, being and doing. All of life, the beauty, the joy, and the deep experiences of sorrow, challenge, and the work of moving through those things to reemerge in a place of joy. And when I started to really embrace that balance is actually a dance, such an extraordinary moment of opening began to occur, and less resistance, less being thrown by things that were happening, less wishing it were different than it was, and more being in the dance. And this idea of the dance of creation really began to help me with working with our fundamental ideas in the science of mind. Fundamental to the science of mind is what Ernest Holmes calls a dual unity. And if that's not a paradox, I don't know what is. A dual unity. And so, yes, oneness is at the heart of what we teach, but that oneness is a wholeness which actually includes both sides, if you will, of the teeter-totter. In this case, but two different ideas that actually make up the whole, the nature of reality. Love and law. Love and law. A seeming paradox that is actually the dual unity of the dance of creation. Now, the problem for me was, of course, I misinterpreted both of those words when I first heard them. And I placed my human idea onto love and law. And so I looked at law and went, well, the justice system doesn't really work so well, so I don't know about this law thing. And love, well, love just, hadn't worked out for me for a lot of years. It hadn't worked out for me so well. The love at home in my childhood was not so great. And so it looked like codependence or just avoiding it altogether and lots of different kinds of things. And ultimately, I just could I just have the Hallmark movie? Right? Haven't we all wished for the Hallmark movie? Except that that's not really what love means, first of all, for us. But it's not what love, and neither one of these things are what love and law means from the infinite perspective. And again, we see how easy it is for us to impose human ideas onto the infinite, as opposed to allowing the infinite to reveal itself to us and recognize that that's actually who we are. So today we're talking primarily theoretically about the nature of reality, and corroborated by our experience, our mystical experiences, and our intuitive knowing, and our spiritual study, and all the things that we've done to bring ourselves to that place where we begin to have a new idea and a new understanding about what's really going on. Love and law. And so love is defined in the science of mind as the self-givingness of spirit into creation. In other words, it's the impulse of that aliveness that Glenda so beautifully sung about. It is the spirit of aliveness. It's life itself. It's the impulse for the unformed, which is what the infinite is as pure, unadulterated presence. The impulse of that to express in creation, in form. Without form or creation, the one is unexpressed. And so love is that desire to express the impulse, and then it is the self-givingness of itself into creation, which we translate into everything you've always needed has already been there. The givingness of the one, all of its qualities and attributes, giving of itself into its creation. And of course, we're the place where that creation is waking up to discover these truths, not just to unconsciously live them. So yes, we are in fact loved beyond measure. We've been given life, the ability to feel, to express, the intellect to understand, the mystical potential for connection to experience, the willingness to explore and discover, all of the ways in which we are opening ourselves, all of that is the impulse of life itself, of that presence to become and to be as creation. The flower, the tree, the star, multiverses, wherever, whenever, all beings, everywhere. All of it. It takes all of it to begin to express the infinite nature of the one. And it's not like, oh, well, good luck. No, it's the infinite givingness. That's how much love there is in the universe. And not the conditional human love that we have experienced or that we have tried to give, no matter how unconditional it is. But that absolute impulse to be expressed and to give everything that's required. There is no deeper love, no greater love. And it is the impulse that directs our lives. When we say, I'm going to hear how Spirit is moving as us, right? Do you see, we are we are allowing Spirit to direct. We are in the receptive place. And that impulse is what's directing creation all the time. Love. Love is the trajectory of life. Love is the trajectory of life. When they say love is the answer, it doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean accepting everything that's ever been done. It doesn't mean that every opinion is okay or every behavior is okay. What it means is that the trajectory of life is always for life. That love is always trying to get out into expression. That's the trajectory of life itself. And we can trust that. And we can lean into that. That's what's going on in creation all the time. And law, well, law is the other side of that paradox. Law has no opinion about what the impulse is that's given to it. It simply knows how to do everything that needs to be done. It knows how to take that impulse and make it something. So love is the directive. law is actually the receptive aspect that says, oh, okay, we're going to have a quasar. Oh, I know how to do that. Oh, okay, we're going to have a sequoia tree here. Oh, I know what the seed needs to do. I know what the soil needs, right? Of course, we're anthropomorphizing it. It's not a being. It's not anthropomorphic. It can only receive the impulse, and it's the infinite universal law that knows then how to do it. The philosopher Plotinus, right, he understood this was the doer, whereas love is the knower of itself, to be itself. Law is the doer. Now, we often use the word impersonal. Well, if the law is impersonal, what that means is anybody can use it, including the infinite creation. But do you see that's the paradox? Because love is the trajectory, which is hugely personal, isn't it? It is the desire to express. And law, so the other word that I like better than impersonal is it's automatic. It automatically makes whatever the impulse is, it makes it happen and come out in creation. So it's automatic. And it is the receptive. It's like like the soil, right? It doesn't matter whether you plant corn seeds or tomato seeds, or you're going to grow a succulent plant or a sequoia tree, right? The soil knows what it needs and knows how to do that. The soil doesn't say to you, wait, it's way too hot here. Sequoias are not going to grow. If you want to plant a sequoia tree, right, it's going to try to help that sequoia tree grow, even though we've planted it in the wrong place. The soil just knows how to give it what it needs and to be receptive to the idea that's being impressed or the impulse that's being impressed, right? And oftentimes we think of this as a little bit different. We're going to play with these paradoxes all month because it depends on where we're standing, which of these sides of the paradox we ourselves are activating. So the first thing we have to understand is this dance of creation. Love and law are constantly in the dance. The impulse of love to express, to become, to give of itself into creation in as many different ways as it possibly can, and the law making that happen. So in fact, love leads and law follows. If it's a dance, love leads and law follows. So when we are seeking to listen to Spirit, right, it is that love that we're seeking to listen to. But when we talk about it next week, we're also going to recognize that we're listening to the law and that sometimes we're leading and the law is following. And so this is the dual unity, the personal idea that love is impressing itself through creation and the impersonality or the automatic nature of the law. The dual unity. And at any given point, right, life itself is playing on that teeter-totter. Sometimes it's really focused on that impulse, and other times it's just the law working itself out. Other words that we use for love and law, the first one for love is we use the word presence. Again, I love that song that you sang, Everything is Alive. Everything is sacred. Presence is the aliveness that is not only impulsing into creation, but is imbued in all of creation, right here, right now. Not just in people, but in everything, right here, right now. Right here, right there at home, wherever you are listening to this. So here's the deal. You cannot get outside of presence. You can't be lost. You can't need to reconnect. There is nowhere to go. Do you see? Because presence is life itself. It's that which vibrates the molecules that has made the chairs. It's that which causes the quantum wave to become a particle. It's right here in the very air we breathe, in the space between the molecules. You can't get outside of it. That's how loved you are. You can't be lost. You can't be disconnected. We can forget. We can get in the way. But presence, it's always there. Always. And the same is true for principle. This is another word that I like better than law. Love and law are the words that Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind mostly uses, but he also uses these two words, principle and presence. Principle we see as that knowledge that knows how to make everything, right? One of the most beautiful examples of principle in nature is the Fibonacci number, right? You see that in the spirals that are everywhere, and they all have exactly the same relationship. Sacred geometry is such a beautiful representation, a way that we can see the principle in action. It knows how to organize this presence into something, whether it's a shell or a flower or a galaxy. It knows, and we can see it. We can see it reflected in the way that life unfolds, creation works, barring human interference. Just as we can veil ourselves from the presence, we can interfere with the natural unfolding of the principle. But it knows how to do that. And it knows how to do that in a million different ways. There's so many ways and places where sacred geometry is evidenced in nature and in the ways in which creation unfolds. Principle and presence, right? And sometimes these words can open up a different idea about how these two things are related, right? That ubiquitous presence that is forever moving through into creation and through creation, and then the principle that goes, oh, this way. Oh, and now in this thing, this way. And yet each one of them shows us the sacred nature of life itself. Presence and principle, seemingly diametrically opposed things, a dual unity. And this dance, right, it's what we want to do with our brains is we want to say one is better than the other, one is more important than the other, one is something, we're going to only be one and not the other. Right, but this is the paradox. This is the dance, right? This is why we use the infinity symbol, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, both simultaneously necessary, operating, present, however we want to say that. And then the dance for us is, how do we take that up? How do we allow this truth to be our dance? And so many of you know I've been on vacation. I had a lovely opportunity to go to Europe for a couple of weeks, and then we went to our cabin in New Hampshire. And I happened to be sharing this story the other day with someone, and I thought, see, this is how this works. This is how this works. So many years ago, so 6 years ago or so, Karen and I started talking really about when we wanted to see how our life was going to unfold, what was going to be like in a couple of years, in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. What are we doing with all of this, with our ministry and everything? And one of the things that I remember saying to her at the time is, I had a cabin in the woods for 3 years in the Cascade Mountains in Washington State. I loved it. I'd love to have another cabin. And so we wrote some things about, well, what would that be like? And we identified 8 states that we thought would be a great place to buy a cabin. All of them sort of in the Northwest, in the Northeast, a few things across the middle, a little bit in maybe Arkansas, northern Arkansas. We identified 8 states that we thought, maybe that'd be kind of cool. And we talked a little bit about the kinds of things that we might like to have. And then we got busy, and life got busy, and we didn't think about it again. And so a couple of years later, 2-3 years later, I was like, we should really start looking into this cabin thing. We should, maybe this was, 2 years later, we should look into this cabin thing. That can't be right, it must have been only a year. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So we started looking, and we spent a number of years. We looked in the Northwest. That was ridiculously expensive because I spent 20 years out there, loved it. I wanted to go back there. Yep, not in our budget. So had to just let that go. Let that go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Okay. It's not going to be in the Northwest. All right. So then Karen got it in wild hair, and she said it's going to be by the Great Lakes. It's cool. They have lots of water there. Don't worry about it. Of course, then the Great Lakes started flooding. And she kept showing me pictures of different places, and I could not get excited about it. And what I realized is that I was not telling the truth. So the next time she showed me a picture, I literally burst into tears. And I said, "What do you notice about the topography?" It's flat. Okay, I already live someplace where it's flat. I am a mountain girl. I need mountains, at least some topography. Could we just have some topography? And I'm from Philadelphia, so I know about the Northeast, and we used to travel up into the Poconos and the Catskills and all of that sort of stuff. And so we started looking. We looked in North Carolina, we looked in Virginia, we looked in Pennsylvania, and we started looking a little further, and she was like, New England? Why do we want to look in New England? Well, and then somebody gifted us with an acre in New England. Oh, maybe we should be looking in New England. So we went and looked at this little acre that somebody gifted us with, and there's a cute little acre and a little, like a recreation subdivision. Yeah, not so much, but there was an acre, there was a lake that was a part of it. Maybe this would work. And while we were considering all of that, we were also continuing to look. And shortly thereafter, Karen found the cabin that we purchased. We found it, went on the market. She found it the day it went on the market. She was on the plane the next day. We made an all-cash offer so that they wouldn't take the other offer they were getting. Made them an all-cash offer. And and we had that. We bought it in a month. And we had a cabin. And was like, wow, that was easy. Wow, that was amazing. After 3 years, that was like, wow. And then later, we do it twice a year. We go back and we look at our journals and we look at what we've decided, and we thought, oh yeah, that's right. We talked about getting a cabin. We should go back and look at what we said. Oh yeah, we sat on a pond, which we are, water, which we are, beautiful little place, right? All the things. Oh, and one of the 8 states was New Hampshire. And so we circled it and we said, sure enough. Impulse and law. Presence, the impulse of life. We want a cabin. The law figured all that out. The principle figured all that out for us over a period of time. Who knew that out of all of that, we found exactly what we were looking for, and in one of the states that we had identified, without going back through that list and going, oh, we better look in New Hampshire, oh, we better look in Vermont, oh, we better look in Idaho, oh, we better, do you see what I'm saying? This is the dance, and we become a little bit too clinging, right? We get all involved in the how and we forget to say the what. This is the dance. And so for us, then, as human beings, our dance is the being to know what it is, how that impulse is moving through us, and then for us to then also activate as the law is moving to do our doingness. We continued to look. We continued to think about it. We did things while we were knowing and being. We have a cabin in the woods. Do you see? And we need both of those things. And it's listening to the impulse. We wanted a cabin in the woods. That might not be remotely what you want. You might want something entirely different that is an outpicturing of your particular way of being in the world. The impulse of life as you, not as your parents, not as your friends, not as the media says, but as you. I just said to somebody, well, why don't you travel with us? And he said to me, oh, no, I have way more important things to do. I got my house to put together. I got to remodel it. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. Like, good for you. That's why I bought a condo, because I want to travel. Do you see? Do you see? Your being, the more that you can be your being, that allows that impulse to be clear as you, not as spirit wants it, but as you. And then the doing is the process of being part of what the law is unfolding, what the principle is working out. It's doing it and you're doing it. That's another place of the dance. Do you see? We're constantly dancing with love and law. We're listening and we're directing. We're receiving and we're choosing. We're being and doing in this intimate dance with presence and principle. Actually, we're doing it whether we know it or not. What we want to do is to become conscious of what's happening so that we can participate in it. So, here's the question. Do you want your life to look like this or like this? And so it is.